morning. Hello, it's Bill, and guess what? I'm going to show you something that nobody wants you to know. It's not that hard to make really good biscuits. So, there's multiple steps with pauses in between because we have to rest, we have to do all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you how to do this and how to make it work. First thing I need to do is get some butter out of the fridge. And why this is important is because we want it really, really cold when we're working with it. So I'm just going to take my stick of butter and I want you to see this up close. Alright, so what we need to do is cut the butter lengthwise, and we don't have to be perfect because this butter is ice cold, so it's going to kind of break up on me, but that's okay. Then we're going to cut it again. And I'm doing it right on the paper so that I can just scrape it all in there. Then I just want to make these little teeny tiny cubes. Nothing fancy. Except for it makes a mess, but that's okay. This is how we always say that baking is a science, cooking is an art. Well, this is baking, so we got to use some science here. Got to understand how it all works together. Alright, so now what I do is I get all my little pieces, and I got a really big bowl because we need plenty of room to mix. Put this in here, scrape off all the extras. And I need to get my hands a little cleaner. That's why paper towels or towels always have to be around. So while that's in the refrigerator, it's going to take 10 minutes. I really want to get that bowl cold. We want to keep that butter nice and cold, and that's really a big secret to it. So in the meantime, the one thing you need to do and can't wait for is preparing what we're going to do when we're all done, right? So I think this is a half sheet. It's the only one I have that's this size. But what I like about it is it's basically the width of the parchment paper. So this is a really easy thing to do. Parchment paper is such a pain in the neck, but I want to just make it. Oh, someone's knocking at the door. That's just a rabbit, don't worry. These have patterns on them so I can see once I figure out where I want to cut it. Take my paper, scissors. And you want to use some pretty sharp ones. It's like cutting Christmas wrapping paper, right? So, this is why I wanted to show you. Because what happens when you do this, right? It's a nightmare. So make sure you turn it over. Make sure it fits close enough. Now, while that's in the refrigerator, the butter, getting everything cold, if it's really down to the end of the roll, don't waste it. How about taking some of your canisters and letting it flatten out? And after a couple minutes, switch to the other corners, unless you have a few other little things you want to stick on here. Wow. pretty cool. It actually works. Anyway, so I'm going to let this sit. For most refrigerators, and you got to think room temperature. We're in Florida, so typically it's warmer. This happens to be a cooler day, so it's like low 70s in here. But obviously, you want the butter out of the fridge as short time as possible. So we're going to kind of make sure everything's kind of ready. And I'm going to walk you through all those steps. But let's start that countdown for 10 minutes in the fridge. I'm going to let this parchment paper flatten out, and I'll be back as soon as my 10 minutes is up. Alright, we're at stage 2. Alright, butter is nice little pieces in the fridge. Now we get the dry ingredients. The bowl doesn't have to be as big because the dry ingredients ain't going to stay in here very long. Alright, there's a method to my madness on how I do this. So pay attention real careful. I need 2 cups of flour, and I'm funny. As I use my flour, sugar, whatever, I do keep it in the bag and just put the bag in my old canisters. And then just start cutting down as it gets low, and I'll show you why. So I need 2 cups of flour. Oh darn, that really doesn't fit, right? So I got my little handy scoop. I'm going to go 1, 2. I want this kind of loose packed. We don't pack it down. And if you've worked with flour before, after like the first million times, you get really kind of just, whatever about it. So I don't want to scrape it all off into the bowl, but I'm doing it over the bowl so I don't make a mess. And I'm like, that's about right. There's a little extra. So I can either do it this way. One. I need a second one, right? Well, now I'm going to do it on the cutting board. Why is that? Because I need to flour the cutting board eventually. Boy, I'll tell you. Gotta make things easy, right? So now I'm going to do the same trick. This is actually technically a breadboard, by the way. It's thin. Don't have to worry about it. Or it's not intended to get all wet and stuff. Alright. Now, once again, I'm just taking the back of the knife and just kind of figuring it out. Now normally, I'm so used to doing this, I always overfill the first one and I just dump it in, because in the second one I usually short. So I've shorted this too much. You measure something for 1,000,000 years and you just get really lazy about it. Alright, so don't have all the edges filled, and I've got just a little bit on top, so that's actually going to be the second cup. Does that make sense? Because there's empty spaces all around. And make sure this is really clean and dry so the flour doesn't stick to it. Always have to worry about humidity in really humid places. I'm just putting the lid back on this to keep my flour good, because I am going to still need it, right? Alright. So now, what else are we going to put in here? Well, I need a teaspoon of salt. That might sound like a lot to you, but we really need that salt in there. First of all, it makes you thirsty. Now, just cancel on a teaspoon. And everyone will tell you that if you're afraid of a teaspoon of salt, you can always cut back a little bit. Now let's go for the big stuff. My time is up with the butter. Look at how handy that was. Now I need a tablespoon of baking powder. I like the shape of this because you can kind of, right? Fortunately, that's a great idea, but oh, it's not meant for a tablespoon because biscuits are like the only thing you put that much in. So I'm going to kind of fudge it, make a little mess. That's a tablespoon. Darn it. Tablespoon. Alright, what else do I need? Last ingredient. Getting very confused. Too many things in front of me. I need a tablespoon of sugar. So I'm going to make sure this is really clean because I don't want baking powder in my sugar. So I'm going to grab a towel just to be sure. Make sure my hand's clean enough. My hand has to be clean too, right? And then you can do the dump. And once again, I cut down as I go. Otherwise, it just keeps dumping back in. And there's my tablespoon of sugar. Done, done. My flour's still out, right? Now, very gently, I just want to make sure we've got this mixed. Oh, it's perfect. All right, now let's get the butter. Let's get it all together. Oh, this is going to be so much fun, so much fun. So I got this nice freezing cold butter. It's not freezing, but it's real cold. And I'm just going to dump my flour mixture in. And it's funny, you can tell if you didn't wash the bowl real well the time before because the flour sticks in places. So I had that all mixed together so that I could save time. I didn't want to be measuring it. First of all, you can't measure it and put it directly in the big bowl because then you wouldn't have the right mixture of, you know, baking powder, sugar, salt, and flour. So now I'm going to take my fork, it's just a regular fork, and you can use a pastry cutter, and I'm actually debating about purchasing one to see. I had one for years, never seemed to use it. Alright, so here's the fun part. You just want to find those butter chunks, and you're going to start just smushing them. And for the first minute, it's very difficult because they are very cold. But that's okay, we're just going to take our time. Pastry cutter does cut right through these and gets it done quicker. Doing it by hand like this is kind of a nuisance because your hand will get a little tired. And you want this really big bowl so that it's not flying all over the counter. Now, believe it or not, it's already starting to soften. This is why you really need it to be cold. I've heard this described several ways. I don't know why when I was a kid we said we always wanted to be in like the consistency, and I can't stop doing this to talk because I keep thinking about doing that. We used to call it like the size of pebbles, really small pebbles, that would be, pebbles isn't really. Some people say it's just like a crumb mixture, but to me crumb mixture is like when I'm making a graham cracker crust, and that is a little finer than you'll ever get this. And even when I make pie crust, which I don't make very often, you want this a little bit more fine, like a graham cracker crumb. So I think that's why with biscuits, I'm sure someone told me a long, long time ago, pebbles, little pebbles. Wait, wasn't that in the Flintstones, little pebbles? Alright, I'm adding a pastry cutter to my list. Alright. And by the way, good old Amazon, you get a pastry cutter for less than $10, okay? Somewhere between $7 and $10. The other thing I learned many, many years ago is keep it to small batches, because A, it keeps them really fresh unless you're doing like a big party or something, you really want all those biscuits, because this is a lot more work if you had a lot more material in here. It would almost be easier to do 2 batches. Okay, getting down to those last few big chunks of butter. Yep, found a couple more. I'm on a mission. Let me show you just a second how this looks. Obviously, like I said, I've been talking too much, so I haven't been really doing my best job. It's almost like you're on the clock trying to get this done. Okay. And you want those little pebbles all covered with flour. You know, make sure nothing's sticking in the bowl, so we do a little stir around with our fork. If your fork gets like meshed up with butter, like mine is a little bit, just have a knife on, the same one you used for measuring. Keep it handy so you keep your fork clean, especially towards the end of this process. All right. I think I see. So just kind of stir around a minute. And while the ingredients are dry, we don't have to worry as much about destroying, kind of breaking down the flour and, you know, getting all the gluten released and messed up or whatever. But once we get the wet to it, because we're going to use some our liquid here. All right, everything's good. It's still ice cold. Now, if you got it too warm, you can't put it back in the refrigerator because there's too much humidity and you'd ruin your flour mixture. So let's go with this. All right, next. I've got buttermilk. Don't use the low-fat buttermilk. It will not work as well. 3/4 cup, nice ice cold buttermilk. Get that right in there. And then just start kind of bringing it up from the sides. And you're going to make a big mess. And this is where you really want to start thinking, and we're just kind of turning it, you know, kind of flipping it, mixing it, and we don't want to be too aggressive. Yeah. So, I'll show you. A little bit of stuff stuck on the bottom. I'm going to get up here. Now at this point, this is where people tell you gotta get your hands in here. I just want to scrape anything that's sticking to the bowl. And the bowl is still cold. Okay, this is not in any way ruining anything yet. Okay. Just checking the consistency here. Yeah, it's still pretty nice and wet. So we have enough buttermilk in there. Ice cold buttermilk. This is Florida, you keep your flour covered, okay? Nice to have it on your hands, so when you get your hands in here, you're okay. And you're going to see these looks. Alright. So now what I need to do is kind of mix this together. And all I do is I kind of bring my hands together. And unfortunately our hands are warm, so we don't want to waste too much time. But I just want it to start to form. And I got enough flour on my hands that for the most part it's not sticking. But we don't want to put a ton of extra flour in here, right? Now we do the old rollover. Pat it. And you'll see the consistency right away is changing. Oops. I'm working with a pretty good mixture here. We need to find the kind of this real doughy parts. so that we can get some of the lot more flour pieces onto it. We're going to pick up all those pieces. It's not sticking to my hands as much, so I know we're doing the right thing. Alright, ooh, piece of butter. Don't want to lose that. Alright, here's where we start to make that decision about how we're going to make the final dough. And not overwork it. So as long as we get the majority of it to stick, and I just want this oval. If you can make it square, that's fine. You're going to want about probably 1/2 inch thick. And it's never going to be perfect consistency wise because it's got to sit. And all I do is I look for butter. Alright. And that look good, right? And it can have these little cracks in it, that's okay. And now what I want to do, I want the flour on my hands, I just want to get some of the excess off. I'm going to take a cookie sheet, baking sheet, whatever you want to call it. Just want to bring it over, place it on here, and they seem to be little obvious pieces, I just have to, but this is kind of floury, so I guess I don't want much of it. Anyway, it's got really nice consistency to it. You did a really great job. Now I'll just get this out of my way so I don't knock this on the floor. And they're really more about getting it even. If you're not sure how to do this, you can use a rolling pin. I think biscuits are supposed to be kind of homemade looking, so I think this is just fine. Like I said, I don't want to overwork it. So I've got this all good, all done. So now what we have to do is get it in the fridge, and I really want to chill it down, okay? You need a good 15 minutes in the Frigidator so that the dough will stiffen up, and then we are going to finish it. So I'm going to let you go so I can get this in the fridge. I'll see you back in 15 minutes. Alright, the moment of truth. My dough is cold, and I hope I can make this work like I usually can. Yeah, it's nice and cold. Sweet. Just a little stuff on here. Okay. Alright. Nice and cold. So now we got it like this. I got to get back on the cookie sheet, but I want to cut it. Well, how do you cut it? Got to use a bench scraper or a knife. Bench scrapers are better. You could use a pizza cutter, but bench scrapers tend to win the battle because you just are pushing down, not tearing. So I'm looking at this piece. It's pretty small, but I don't want huge pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one edge off. This is going to be perfect. Boom. Cut another edge off. Boom. And first edge, I'm going to cut little pieces. Get them back on the... They don't have to be perfect, okay? Second piece, do the same thing. And then I got this big piece which I kind of messed up, but that's okay. Boom. 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 Ain't they beautiful? This is exactly how it should look, and you can see a piece of butter in there. And these can be a little crumbly looking, but they're going to bake together. And this is how you're going to make a really, really fluffy biscuit. Now the oven's at 450. I'm going to do this quickly because I want to get these in there and start baking. And 450. It's going to take me 11 minutes in my oven at 450. Anywhere between 10 and 12. And I'm going to talk about that as soon as I throw them in the oven. I'll be right back. So, we want that heat to hit them real fast. Now the baking sheet's still cold and the biscuits are still cold, so I want that heat to hit them. So what it's going to do, it's actually going to start to cook the bottom of that biscuit and let that butter sort of melting in, and also get that baking powder to kind of, you know, explode. And notice I didn't handle it after I got it out of the fridge, because everything's ready to go and it's going to be perfect. And almost 10 minutes and you're going to see what these things look like. I'll be back in 10 to show you. Alright, the moment of truth. Anyway, it's going to go off in a few seconds. I got my glove on, I'm ready. Trust me. Now this is time. .450 is hot. Now I'm going to show you one of my tricks. .450 is hot. Alright, I wanted to stop the heating as fast as possible. Now, I want to get these flipped because I don't want, and some of these smaller ones are going to be a little crunchier than I normally would. I'll be honest, we were cleaning the kitchen, I wasn't paying attention, but these will still be the best biscuits you've ever had. Trust me. Flavor is amazing, even the little crumbs. So, this is something, because of your oven, you want to kind of practice a little bit. If your oven's really, really too hot, just cut the time. I don't recommend using a lower heat, but what I can tell you is it also depends on whether you use a dark color pan or light color pan. Dark color pan is going to hold that heat, and we'll cook them a little faster. That's probably why a couple of these are a little darker, but trust me, they're still absolutely so flaky inside. They don't need anything. That is a perfect. Hot. Trust me. I have honestly never had a better biscuit than these. And once you have homemade biscuits, you just can't go back to the store, throw them in the oven yourself biscuits. These are fabulous, fabulous. I don't know what else to tell you. As soon as they cool down, you can wrap them in plastic, throw them in the fridge. To heat them, just throw them in a little piece of tin, enclosed, so they'll steam back up. 350 oven, 10-12 minutes. Sometimes I'll get them out of the fridge ahead of time, get them wrapped in the tin. Only heat up as many as you're going to eat. You can freeze them. They won't be as good, but they'll still be pretty darn good. Well, I'm just flabbergasted. That's a good word. These things are just, that's perfect. The dough is cooked completely. Man, I'm telling you, this is it. And like I said, it's baking. It's a little more science. So I do recommend practice a few times before you try and impress your friends. But once you get it down, it's really not overworking the dough, getting that butter chunked up nice and small so it blends in real quick, cutting it in. Like I said, a pastry cutter will work better, and I have decided while I was waiting for these, I will give that a try. Man, I'm telling you, I'm really impressed. Anyway, enough of that. Thank you for watching. Write some comments, try them out. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.